Hey, Dominic, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Dominic, you have this crazy story about title and fraud and real estate. Tell us about that.
Yes, I'd love to. So this was a great one. I didn't have to do any remedy work or anything. I just saw it in a title, and I have been telling it for years now. Essentially, short story is that the husband and wife, they owned a property together jointly, as tenants by the entirety. There was a durable power of attorney signed by the wife to the husband, which actually didn't come into play in the deed. But then the wife deeded her interest to the husband, and she unfortunately then passed away. And the husband continued on living with the property. He transferred it to a trust. He eventually passed away himself. And the property was eventually, before it got sold, this affidavit got put on record. And it still is the craziest affidavit I've ever seen, or craziest document I've ever seen in a title search. It
So
was
let's stop
done.
right there, Dominic. You're talking about a lot of stuff that are like just back of the hand in terms of you, but let's talk about in terms of, so when people are married, you said something about tenants in the entirety. What is that? Let's explain that.
Yes. Tenants by the entirety. It's a way to own a property when you are married couple. And all it means is that if one of you passes away, it automatically goes to the other without the need for a probate, without the need to do another deed, without really the need to do anything else beyond, recording a death cert and some other things to make sure it's correct. So it's the typical way that most married couples own a property.
Right. So it wasn't much of an issue because when the wife passed away, it just automatically went over to the husband. But then when the husband kind of passed away, now we weren't sure about who was owning the property. Is that when this kind of crazy title was going on?
Well, yeah, in an extent, no, but because the husband, before he had passed away, he did put it into trust, which a different way of avoiding probate as well. He did put it into a revocable trust that presumably was going to go down to the kids. But before the kids could sell the property, that's when the crazy affidavit came along, and it threw a loop in the sale, and it threw a loop in the old deeds as well.
Okay, so all right, so now we're up to the part of the story where like the real action starts coming in. But so no one really knew about this until, say, a couple of kids inherited this property, thought everything was fine, and all of a sudden, like the roof just falls down on them, right? I mean, in the bigger sense, right? Like they didn't notice this issue. So okay, so imagine if you're or someone who's representing those people who are trying to sell this house. What happened next?
Yes. So, and it was actually, over 5 years after the initial deed from the wife to the husband. Okay. And it's funny because you say they didn't know, but one of the kids at least absolutely knows because of what happens. That kid, who is an attorney at law in Massachusetts, and at least I think in New Hampshire as well, her ex-husband, who was in the process of getting a divorce at the time, recorded an affidavit about the property. And he basically told all. It was like a drama TV series where he just told everything, all of the secrets from the back chain. Most notably, that when the mother signed the deed over to the father, she was completely already debilitated. She was not of sound mind. She was in late stages of dementia. So sad story completely. But he basically stated, from knowing her of 20 years of being the son-in-law, he knew full well that she had no idea what she was signing. And in fact, she didn't even sign the document that this guy's ex-wife, who was the daughter forged the signature for the mother on both the deed and durable power of attorney, which allowed the father to do a refinance a couple of years later. So this woman completely, who was an attorney, she completely forged everything.
Now, why did the husband write an affidavit? Like, was it just like a coming to, his religious beliefs moment? Like, what was the thing that drove him to do this?
I would think something had to have happened in the divorce. I don't know that. All he said, he says it right in the affidavit. He actually says, like, I am in the process of it, or I am in the middle of divorce proceedings with the woman. And that's why it is like a complete unknown. I would love to think, that it is just maybe that he felt a bit bad about it, but that he just purely said it was a horrible divorce and he wanted to get back at her. Because the best part comes like as it goes on. Not only did he say that, she forged this, she forged that, he openly states that he was the one who notarized. He was there with them,
No.
and he notarized all of the documents. He helped draft the documents because he is also an attorney
Oh
in
my
both
God.
Massachusetts and New Hampshire. So we find all of this, and he goes on and on and on. He even says where she signed it. He makes a statement that the daughter says, "Oh, I am so good at signing my mother's name, it's fine." He continues to say why they did it, that they openly talked about defrauding the US government because they thought that the mother was going to need long-term care. So they wanted to get the property out of her name for that reason. So he just keeps going on. And at the very end, he ends it. I am making this statement. I know that this will very likely impact my ability to practice law in both Massachusetts and New Hampshire, but I feel that it has to be said.
Oh my God. So do you know what ended up happening to all their law licenses?
He did lose it in Mass. I don't know about New Hampshire. This was a Mass property, and I believe they both did live in New Hampshire, so maybe it didn't get up there. I don't know. But I actually did end up looking it up because I don't know. I was being nosy and curious at the time, and I did see that he lost it in Mass. So.
And the daughter also a lawyer, so she could have faced similar consequences.
Yep. And it was bad because they still had to sell the property. So thankfully I wasn't the one doing the purchase. I was the next sale. But we saw what they had to do. They had to go all the way back to basically the beginning, and they had to get it all done. I mean, fortunately for them, they were lucky they didn't need to probate it because the mother did die first. So going back to tenants by the entirety, the property did go to the father's estate. However, none of the rest of it was then valid, and they just had to redo all the signatures. So it was a funny back title, and still the craziest thing. I just can't believe what that divorce could have been to make this guy come out and say this.
Well, it's a funny story now, but I'm sure at the time where everyone's going through it's certainly very stressful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great story where your subsequent counsel like way down the line and nothing affects you. It's great, but imagine just being the attorney on the buyer side and just seeing all these title issues kind of pop up and realize that they can't complete the transaction would be heartbreaking. You know, for the people who are just the buyers, didn't know anything about this, or like, oh, this is our dream home. That must be difficult.
And the other kids, I have no idea if the other kids of the family knew anything. There were 2 other kids involved. And I know that from seeing the estate, but I don't know if they knew that their sister was doing this or anything. I mean, I'm sure that they obviously knew their mother's condition and everything, but yeah, no, it was definitely insane. And I when I saw this, the same attorney represented them when they sold, and I called him on it and asked, and he was like, yeah, that was a crazy one. So, interesting.
So Dominic, let me ask you about your day job. When should people call on you?
So I do real estate, residential real estate mostly, and it's whenever you are buying or selling. We help buyers, sellers, lenders, whatever it may be, with closing, title work, purchase and sale negotiations. In Massachusetts, that is whenever you are buying or selling, most people get an attorney. And in fact, you're required to have an attorney on any mortgage process involved. So anytime at all, that's when you look to call me.
And I mean, you're talking about the prime example why title work is so important, right? Even though, yes, you do have to pay extra for that, but it'd be silly to not have that. I know all my lawyer friends and all have title insurance because it's just crazy not to.
Well, and this is the prime example that I will use this as one to tell clients why. If the buyers from this family purchased the property before this guy put this affidavit on record, and then he came out and did it, I mean, theoretically, they're fine. I mean, it would have already been done and it would have happened, but this could have caused a huge problem. And title insurance is going to step in and cover something like this. It's going to cover, something like encroachments that aren't actually there or shown on a plot plan or a survey or anything. So yes, I do think that, it's very important to have an attorney who's reviewing the title, who does see what is coming up in these chains. And also the attorney who's negotiating the P&S to make sure you're covered in the event something goes wrong during the chain of title.
Well, Dominic, we don't have that much more time today. I know you have a bunch of crazy stories that you can talk about and all the experience that you have. Nothing to do with you, your own transactions, some stuff in your career. So I appreciate you coming on today. Hope you have you getting back again soon.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me. It was a pleasure.